Welcome to part 3. Okay, I prepared a little experiment. Today's Monday. On Friday afternoon I mixed this kind of tight bond quick and thick with some kind of iron oxide pigments. I just stirred it so it's black stuff, and then I had these 2 old pieces of wood just from my workshop, dirty, and I didn't clean them, nothing. I just put it on one piece and squeezed it onto the other, and I wanted to see how strong this bonds, because this is now a certain gap in between, like in this crack that we have, and it's black. That's what I would like. And this stuff here is very easy to clean afterwards. It's very handy to work with, and I just wanted to get an impression of how much that will actually hold. Look, there's this glue joint, roughly 2 square centimeters, I don't know. I'll just try to break this off. Here's the toothpick I stirred it with. It's rock hard, this black stuff, rock hard, but still you can bend the stick without it breaking. This is what I would like to see, because I think if it's too brittle, it will probably be a problem sometime. So also here's the stuff. You can bend it to a certain extent, but it's still, probably it will still harden actually a few days. Even it sticks to the plastic. I had to. Okay, I will just see if I can break this off now. And it's not easy for sure. It took me quite a bit of turning force to actually break this off. So that really, while bridging a gap, I hope that I wouldn't be able to break this. But it certainly took out some wood fibers from the other side. So this is a decent bond if you imagine it going all through the crack. Not perfect, but I'm pretty sure good enough. So the idea now though is to combine this probably, or actually without this black powder, and on the surface add a spline, a wooden spline. I will see if I manage to produce a wooden spline of that size. Okay, let's see. Okay, first I will try to clean this crack a bit. And make it a little bit triangular, so a spline will slide inside. You get the point. Gotta clean this as good as I can without increasing it. Okay, learning by doing. This is not something you fix every day. I thought this back here, for example, would be super thick, like this, but actually I managed to put in this through here, and it's actually more or less 2 or 3 millimeters thick at max. You can see it's coming through now here. So a spline is actually a better idea than I thought, but it's still, I don't know, maybe 5 millimeters thick, something like that. So I will definitely give it a try, but I have to make a spline that goes all the way through the back of the body, what is a pretty big challenge, because it breaks so quickly. but I will give it a shot. Okay, I got this piece of spruce. I will try to create a wedge that I can put in here by doing endless sandpaper pulls through here without breaking it. This would take some time, so almost done. Okay, I'm sorry I messed up, and also it was too stressy, I guess, to film the whole splining operation. I put in the spline now with fish glue that I dyed or painted with black carbon oxide powder. Otherwise you would always have this bright line somewhere and it looks stupid. So I fit in the spline and glued that in now, and then when this is dry in 1 or 2 days I will fill up the rest of the remaining gap from the inside with, I guess, probably also fish glue. In the meantime, we can continue working on the neck. This fretboard still has the frets in, the worn frets, and it still has this problem with this written notes everywhere. So I want to take out the frets before I reglue the fretboard, and I will refret the neck when the fretboard is on the neck already, because then you really know how everything will be aligned. Then you can still potentially sand a bit before if you need to, but I prefer to have the frets out before I reglue it, and then, you know, generate a bit more stability even through the fretting when it's on straight. That's the idea. Okay, we have to be careful with this. I'm used to working on guitars every day, but I'm not used to constantly filming myself and always have to be, you know, somewhat presentable. Always have to keep in mind that stuff is more or less visible on camera. This is all. I was very motivated 2 weeks ago, and now, you know, I will get this done. I will finish this series, but this is not making it easier. And then you always have to be, you know, nervous of the YouTube community spotting anything you do that might be completely inappropriate, like pulling a fret without heating it, or people who watch a lot of YouTube luthier videos that might be holding their heads. But you know, you have to understand that sometimes it makes sense and other times it doesn't. Like with these frets, there's no glue and nothing happens if I just pull them out this way. But most of the YouTube audience isn't, well, whatever. Anyway, I can live with people not being fine with what I do. I know there's always a few, no matter what you do, and I am fine with it. So okay, when you do something like this, it's best to concentrate or not talk. I think you have seen it a million times. I will carefully pull those threads out. No problemo. Okay, the threads are out now. As you can see, it's no problem. Then now I will try to get out those carvings in the fretboard. The problem here is that I don't want to sand, since this is pretty thin fretboard already, I don't want to sand it thinner until they're gone. So I will try to scrape them out. And you have a minimal scalloping here, maybe one here, there. I think that won't be noticeable. And you know, it is what it is. This old guitar, I didn't put them in there. I started here. I think it will work out fine. So this nice scraper, and then try not to leave any kind of deeper marks. Will also take a while. And after I finish scraping here, I will still sand it with 120 upwards to, I don't know, I might go to 2000 here just to have it nice and shiny. And then the fretboard and the neck are ready to meet each other again. I mean, I still have to do some sanding and cleaning, but that's not big a deal. Okay, these marks are almost gone. In the right light you can see them, in the wrong I think you don't. I'm confident the rest will go away with the sanding. And even if not, this is, I don't want to take away more. This is how it is. Okay, I will now clean the neck and the fretboard. I'm using the glue goo for this part. I'm sure this was glued with hide glue, and you don't have to do too much cleaning up if you plan on using hide glue again, but I will at least clean that a bit. And can't hurt. Okay, let this soak for a while and scrape it off. Okay, this is how the neck looks like after epoxy cured. It's now hard. And of course that does not work with the glue goo. So I have to sand and scrape the epoxy off. And also there's a tiny hump in the neck on this area. This high E side is completely flat, but we have a tiny bit of a high spot here. So I want to do some light sanding in this area just to reduce this high spot. And hopefully then the neck will be completely straight. Okay, but first I try to scrape off most of the epoxy. Not much. And this is why I wanted these rods to be slightly under the surface of the rest of the neck. Because otherwise this would be impossible to clean. Also now I'm scraping away stuff in the middle, what will help me later when I reglue the fretboard to have really nice contact, especially on the outsides here. Alright, most of the epoxy is off. I just wanted to say one more thing. I wanted to say it for a while. Probably some of you will be like, I should protect this guitar a bit better with everything. And you might be right, actually. I usually use these pads because they're anti-slip. One thing to note is this is my guitar. And if this would be a customer's instrument, I would have to do that, and I would. But because it's my guitar and I'm usually pretty good at preventing stuff like this, and I'm lazy, I think this is a fine line between acceptable or not acceptable. Also, taping this guitar is very, very risky. This is old shellac, and no matter what you do to this tape, on this old shellac you always have tear out with tape. So the best way here really is just to be very careful when you work on it. And if there's a tiny mark somewhere happening on this big restoration, then so be it. If I wouldn't do this, this guitar would be kind of, you know, good to look at best. And this is life. Shit happens sometimes, we can try our best. And well, this is how it is. I will now, I cleaned most of the epoxy, and I will now try to carefully sand away this little hump here. See, this is a treble side. It's basically completely straight. What we need, and the bass side, let me show you, there's a little gap here. And it comes up to this area. I checked it. You know, I bend the tongue down when he bent his neck, so we have a bit of fall away here later. And there's this high spot here around that, and it has to go. Put some tape on this side, so I'm not sanding anyway here too much. And now I'll just kind of carefully see what happens where we remove stuff. If it's on the right spot, I will continue. And you can see here, you can't, but I can. This is the spot where it's getting bright and the pencil is a bit sanded through. So I think this is the right way to go here. This is not a dramatic bow here, and I think I could probably with fretting and leveling after regluing the fretboard and also get rid of that, but I think it is easier now. Again, I can't take away too much here because then this whole fret, the neck will get narrower and the fretboard won't fit on top properly anymore. But since probably the binding shrank a little bit might be actually good. We'll see. You can see the bright spot here. That was kind of the culprit. And now pretty much all of that bow is gone, and to an extent where, you know, that I can live with. Again, I will still fret this neck when the fretboard is on, what might introduce a tiny bit of back bow, and then you don't know how rigid this neck will be after all, even with this three, you know, every neck is different. And the last thing I want is to have a minimal back bow with string tension on. I'd rather have a minimal forward bow with string tension on. So the aim is kind of to have it minimal back bow without string tension and a minimal forward with string tension on what is, you know, the ideal that you can't really achieve, you can only get close to it. And I'm very happy with his results so far. Okay, it's now time to sand this everywhere slightly, and then we'll also apply some glue on this parts here everywhere. Doesn't hurt. And then hopefully those two pieces are good to go. We have to see how they fit together. I might have to sand a bit the fretboard to fit this surface perfectly. Okay, glue goo is already on here. I sanded it. I will use glue goo to scrape things off, rest of glues, and then I will sand it again slightly to have a good surface for the glue to work with. Okay, this is crystal. If you sand this off, it's handy if the scraper isn't actually too aggressive, just very dull metal. You get the point. Okay, this is how nicely clean it already looks before sanding. This has to dry at least one day, and also this after cleaning, and then we might be able to put this thing on. Okay, we have a spline in here now. See, it went in pretty well. All the way, or pretty much all the way through. It's of course still proud of a surface, so we have to address that. I also put this blackened fish glue in this last spot because this is really impossible to spline and there was a really small gap. Yeah, once again happy with the result. I think once this is black or dark brown, this will look pretty cool and not out of place, because again, this is not a crack in the wood, this is two sides of the guitar. This is how it was constructed. This is not one single piece of wood, this just split in the old joint. So this crack is exactly in the middle and it's completely straight, so it will not look weird or so. You will see. Okay, I will have to tape here and here not to leave too many marks in the finish. The taping is risky in this guitar, but I don't see any way around it. And you can use this quality 3M low-tech tape, and on top of that, you know, put it on your pullover, on your nice belly, 1 or 2 times, 3 times. I did that before, and now this is really low-tech, and I will just leave it for half an hour or so. Okay. This is a good method to get pretty close to level without any risk. Oh. But once I get close to the glue and to the finish, I will stop. Okay, this is pretty level now. There's no way of getting around getting a, you know, tiny bit into the finish here and there, but I think that will disappear later mostly. I can touch that up. It's now flat. You don't feel the crack anymore really. I'm wiping the rest of the glue with a wet cloth that actually already darkens the spline. Why not? Okay, also when I'm at it, there's this white whatsoever, probably from a wall or something like that. I will remove that. Here also something, I think probably it hang at some kind of wall sometime and it bumped into that. It's not done yet, don't worry. Okay, the stuff has dried. I will now still sand this a bit carefully, not to round over those edges. And then give it a dry clamp and then put the fretboard back on. Okay, what you can see here, this has a slight, just tiny bit, like this. How to explain it better. But also the fretboard has a little bit of this shape. What is unusual, usually most of them had also this shape, and then you have to make sure they fit together well. But probably this was constructed like this because, you know, the most important part is that really the edges are sitting tightly together, and you know, this is what you see, and I've never seen a fretboard come off on its own anyway. And if I press those together, it looks pretty good. There's really no gaps really, maybe. So I will give that a dry clamp and we see how it looks. And one more thing, I'm sanding this fretboard and I'm absolutely smelling nothing. What kind of means is actually not real, probably. because when you sand Rio, you know, you smell it, and this doesn't smell like anything. What is, you know, a good and a bad thing? That is not Rio, because it makes things easier if it's not Rio, but it's more prestigious if it's Rio, because it has magical properties. And that's why you have to pay a lot of money. Okay, me lazy bastard finally realizes that there's no way around taking off those tuners. They do a very good job still turning. I think they don't need to be maintained besides a bit of oil. Yeah, this one is a bit. But maybe in general cleaning, it's anyway handy to take them off. I should have done it earlier, but there was no need earlier really, so I waited. When you reglue the fretboard, it's handy if you can clamp the neck by its head somehow. Got the screws, got the tuners. This is original tuners for sure. And now you can see this positioning pins come into play, and I don't have to worry about the right position on the fretboard. You can still do it if you forgot those, it's no problem, but it's easier like this. Okay, this is a dry clamp. Looks good. I waxed this sides here a bit so I can remove the height glue better later. I will reglue this with the tight bond height glue. I started to buy the small bottles because I never finished the big ones. I use normal height glue, but for this application I use this height glue because you have a way longer open time, and I think 2 minutes for this operation is usually or often not enough. That's why I think this is a good compromise for this. If you ever have to take this fretboard off again, it won't be a problem. Alright, then next step is cleaning both sides with acetone and then putting the glue on. Okay, it's done. It's on there now. And now we just hope that everything will stay exactly as it was before, kind of like that when we take off this clamp rubber band tomorrow, that the neck will be completely straight and so on. Some of the glue likes to run into the fret slots. This will be the next bigger topic here with the neck, the refretting. What won't be so easy on this one, well, I will see. Yep. Okay, sorry, I couldn't film this because there's so much to do when you glue on with height glue, something like this. Cleaning, checking. It's fast and stressy, and I don't want to have another layer of difficulty on top of that. I think I showed it actually in the last video in the Roger or so. Did I? I don't remember. Okay, I put in the spline. I try to you know, darken it most places. And this kind of stuff, especially on this fragile shellac finish, is very, very difficult. This is the most difficult thing for me, at least. My experience is that the more you touch up and the more you do with this kind of stuff, the worse it looks. So I'm going to leave this at this is for now. Of course, you can completely scrape the back or so if you want, but this wasn't mint to begin with, so I think this is not hurting the eye as it is now. I'm fine with it. Not perfect, but it's good enough. Okay, the fretboard is on again, and it worked out well. Wasn't just got a bit of complications here with this gum on this new lacquer. I knew that could happen, but I'd never had that much. As you can see, I tried something here already, but the previous person did this kind of reglue here and some, you know, painting of this whole area in black. That does not look good. And my plan now is to, because I added some troubles here, as you can see, shame on me. This old shellac finishes are so delicate that sometimes there's no way around. You know, I had to make sure the fretboard is on there securely. So my plan now is to lightly sand the whole back of this neck, and since it's a shellac finish, I will put on black alcohol paint, or I don't know how to translate that, black dye that is on alcohol basis, and it will kind of soak into the shellac, and you know, the neck will become black. I think that will look way better than this now. Here's too bright. This area is fine, I could live with that, but this looks bad, and with this new damage and with this problem zone here, you have to touch that up anyway. And I think this guitar is gonna look better with a black neck in the future. So that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, one more thing. The neck was perfectly straight, but now I glued the fretboard on. It's pretty straight still, but there's again a little hump in this area. So probably the fretboard itself had a tiny hump. It's just a tiny bit, but I have to sand away a bit here once again. And then possibly what can happen is that those two inlays get a little bit brighter than the other ones. But once again, this is something you have to live with. It's not the end of the world. It's just one or 2/10 of millimeters that I have to take away here, I think. Not much. So I will never ever sand through the inlays for sure. Okay, this is what I'm going to do next. This bit of sanding, and then hopefully also a little bit of sanding everywhere, so the last remainers of those engravings disappear. Then the back of a neck, refret, la la la, it's a lot of work. Neck reset. Oh boy, what have I done? Okay, it's time to address the side access. I've seen this in, I'm not sure if I pronounced it right, Doc McCormick's video. You're kind of increasing the size of the side by sawing through here and regluing the neck block. That's why I didn't glue anything here yet. I will try to saw that through directly on this old joint, so there's not too, yeah, it's savage, but once, if you do it right, I think you can barely see something was done at all. Now take your blood pressure pills. We're going in. Okay, I sort through here. Now we have the following questions. This side has been reglued already, but as you can see, the glue joint is between that black line and the wood. And someone just pressed it inwards probably when regluing, and this is not a connection that holds up very well. So I have now the choice of trying to squeeze that in again. This side worked better, this didn't. Or I can, you know, heat up this area and take this block completely off the bottom as well, what I think is the right thing to do. And then, you know, take this amount maybe roughly off, and also try to cover this side, because I think sooner or later this will come out again, possibly, and I'd rather have this done properly one time. Look, maybe I can't, maybe this will be visible somehow, but I'd rather have something visible that is really a solid repair than something that tries to be invisible and is not. Okay, I'm just heating this up and hope it will come apart afterwards. I am not quite sure what this white glue is. Okay, I will heat this up for 15 minutes with a small foil iron, and I tried around a bit, and it's kind of difficult to find a secure way into the glue line. I will have to see if it's easier once it warms up. This white glue unfortunately does not react strongly to water or heat. In my experience, every glue kind of gives in to heats eventually, but I hope it let's see what happens. Here you can see what huge difference the glue makes and how fresh it is and everything. This already takes me longer than taking off the front or the neck combined soon, and it's just a small area. But this is this really nasty, I don't know, white glue that doesn't really soften up under heat or moisture. I think I will get it off eventually, but it will take a bit of time. I started it now, so now I have to finish it. This really is the nastiest shit glue ever that you can possibly use for this task. It's even worse than epoxy. I don't know what it is. It doesn't react to heat, it doesn't react to anything. I just slowly wiggle it free. This is... I don't get it. I mean, someone who was working on here clearly knew how to glue on the back of a guitar. It's not, you know, it's done well, but the glue choice is horrible. I don't get it. On this guitar, how you can, even normal tight bond would have been fine, but this is some kind of, it stinks disgustingly. Doesn't want to give in. And the next person is just, you know, screwed. I guess this will eventually somewhat come off, but the chances in this area here to damage the sides are very high. So I will see how this goes really, and you know, well, let it be a warning. Ta-da! Okay. The aim now is to glue this back together. Like at the moment there's a gap, and then the side shrinks, and then there's no more access, hopefully. And if I wouldn't have separated this side, I could only screw the upper part again, and we have a triangle, and we still have problems on the bottom. Oh boy, okay. Okay, I think I put on the front and it looked a lot better, and I know that I'm not going to get a perfect match anyway. It's just not happening with these old guitars. So it looked pretty good. So I have to glue all of that back together. I still have to glue the sides here and there. And now the question is where to start and where to end. Because for all this stuff here in the middle and so, I want to use the normal tight bond, and to put on the top again I will use this Tite Bond height glue. So I don't want to mess this surface area up. The question also is which glue to use down here, and because I don't know what was previous here, so probably I will just use Tite Bond because it usually works for most stuff pretty fine. Okay, so I will have to clean all of that as good as I can with sandpaper and then find a way to clamp this together. And that will be actually not so easy here because I don't have any clamps to really fit here. Just my hands. I don't want to hold here for an hour. I hope I can work something out. Okay, now I have to make sure, we have to make sure that this actually all fits together well. I mean, no bigger gaps. So you would think that you can take that for granted, but somewhat this block is a tad too long and I have a small gap here. I'm not sure what happened at the previous glue up, but since I re-glue on this weird joint, I don't want to be at I want it to fit very well, because otherwise it won't hold possibly. Again, I can't take away too much here, because then also I get new problems, you know, on other places. So you have to juggle a bit. See how it goes. Especially that side is somewhat, but I already got a lot better. The thing is they're perfectly matching up here. If I now start taking away more of this side, this will be higher than this. So you have a new problem here. You know, you can go deeper and deeper into the slump if you're not careful. I was just sanded a bit, tiny bit more. And then it should be fine. I will most likely glue those two sides back together and this down at the same time, because anyway the glue will run down into this area and it's very hard to prevent that. So I will glue this back here and then we will take care of this side that starts separating here. Alternative would be to try to get those blocks off the side walls completely and reglue them once they're free. I'll think about it. Okay, not as I wanted it, but this part fits perfectly together with the other side of it, and we'll make sure it's go to the right place once I reglued them. So I think this is, while it looks bad, it's fine. And the good thing about this is I can really clean this area and also this top and back to make sure next time really sticks well and fits well. You can see here this white stuff that I was fighting with is sitting on top of the previous hide glue. So something like this is annoying to reglue, of course. I can't sand away too much because otherwise this neck block will not fit anymore. So I have to get rid of as much as I can without changing the size. And then, but then it should, you know, if you really have a good surface, it should hold well. Actually, I thought about the whole thing, and I think this guitar will actually be fine like this without an end block. You can't see it anyway. Gotcha. Of course not. Okay, good news. Whatever this white stuff was, it seems to be dissolving more or less in this glue vinegar stuff. It'll probably be it's water based, as far as I understand. Maybe not. I hope to use it. I use this because I thought if someone put it on top of the hide glue, it's enough if I get rid of a hide glue and this nasty stuff will, you know, that just sits on top, will come out with it. So I let that soak and see what happens. Okay, this worked very well. I'm on the wood fibers, there's no glue. I can now take any glue I choose here, I think. But I think for this side I will anyway take Titebond Original. For the other one, hide glue. If ever anyone wants to take something off this guitar, it has to be the front then, because this nasty white stuff, good luck getting that off anyway. So I don't care too much about this, and normal Titebond will already be way nicer to separate than this weird stuff. I will clean all the other, I mean this side here don't have to be cleaned like this. I will clean the rest that is infected with this white stuff and then see if it fits together. Okay, I reglued this block and I'm cleaning it now with the glue goo. I'm cleaning this part with the glue goo. I will clean the top joint with the glue goo and then try to glue it all back together. Alright, I started regluing this. There's a lot of small joints in this area and I didn't want to glue them all at once because then you risk something is misaligned. Like I really made sure that this is nicely flat, and I reglued here and this already actually, because when I clamp the block on, I have no way telling if this is actually how I want it. So this is the first step, and the next step will be to put on the block. Okay, here's a dry run. You have to get creative a bit when you glue something like this. I got 4 clamps pressing those together, and then I got 2 of those pushing it down. I really like to use this fret rubber blocks for clamping in this kind of weird spots. I just put them in a plastic bag and then the glue doesn't stick, and they really distribute pressure. Well, and now it's time for the glue. Okay, we come to the end of this video. I had some complications because one of the sides somewhat I first glued those two sides together and then added the block, and when I added the block, one of the sides slightly moved like 0.5 millimeter in this direction under some kind of clamping pressure. So I had to heat up this side of the side, of the side, and reglue it further in this direction properly. And now hopefully the back should go on more or less, because I won't get to a perfect fit. This is just not happening, but I want to get to a good fit. We'll see how I go next time. Also, I sanded the back of a neck with 400, put on a few layers of shellac, and now I added a few layers of alcohol based stain. So the neck is almost black. The question is, how far do you want to go? I think old shellac usually has light spots, and I personally like it if it looks like worn and old. So I will see how this looks like when it's dry, and if I add more, if I make it completely black or have some spots in between that look like authentic wear on a neck of a back, on a back of a neck. Okay, anyway, next week is big time reglue the front, not the back, actually the front. That will be the most stressy part of it all, and then probably I will already start fretting the neck, because I already leveled it. I got tired of filming everything, I can tell you. I just straightened this little hump I showed you earlier here on that side. I already sanded it up to 600. So the neck is now perfectly straight. I also sanded away this weird gap there, so now that looks better. Yeah, so it will be fretting the neck, putting the top back on, and then the previous week afterwards, most likely putting the neck back on the guitar and bridge tuners, all the fine tuning, see if everything worked out the way you thought it would and hoped it would. I was at a pickup. Anyway, thanks for watching. For those few who watch these videos, actually, I just wanted to do this once in a while. I enjoy parts of it, and but it's more stressy than it looks like when you film it. I know I always look like a more or less relaxed guy, and I think you have to be when you restore old guitars, because they're really emotionally wearing you down sometimes, and if you not stay relaxed, you do stupid things. So better stay on a slow side sometimes. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next week, hopefully. Bye bye.